Welcome to part 2 of this director's review of the work of the Denis Hurley Centre in 2023. Using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a way of reviewing the work of the centre and had reached the level of cognitive needs. Are our opportunities to learn, and one way in which we've done this is taking the young people, the children from our Dalton creche, out for opportunities to learn around the city. They may rarely leave their homes and not get a chance to access even a beautiful free venue like the Durban Botanic Gardens, and hear one of their experts teaching the young people something about plants and gardening. We continue to work with organisations to provide vocational training to people who come to the Denis Hurley Centre. Here, a great project working with South Africans and foreign nationals to train them in cell phone repairs. It's a really useful course because it's one which requires relatively little and relatively cheap equipment, and having trained, you can set yourself up on any street corner with a table. You don't need a permit, you don't need a qualification, and you can immediately start making money. We've continued to use workshops and lectures in Durban and around the country to promote the values of the Denis Hurley Centre, and particularly of Paddy Carney, our founder. This was a seminar that we were involved in at DUT's International Centre of Non-Violence, which was reflecting on Paddy Carney as an icon of non-violence. And then my own PhD about Paddy was released in 2023 and presented in lectures in Durban, Cape Town, Joburg, and via Zoom in Nairobi, reflecting on Paddy as a model of the response of lay people to the challenge of Vatican II. The PhD will be turned into a book later this year. An American professor from Loyola University in Chicago, Professor Al Genie, a great supporter, a great donor to the Denis Hurley Centre, was with us during the course of the year, and he ran a packed session at St. Joseph's Church reflecting on leadership and what lessons we can learn for leadership, particularly at this stage in our history as a country. We had students throughout the year coming in to visit us and to learn from us. Here, a group of urban planning master students from different universities around the country who were involved in a series of seminars in Durban and came down to visit the Denis Hurley Centre as part of their reflections on the way in which urban planning helps and sometimes hinders the development of city centres. Learning about other faiths is an important part of what we offer, and here a group of American students from the Jesuit University Boston College who were part of a program traveling around South Africa, and they came to Durban, worked at the Denis Hurley Centre, and like so many other young people who come to us, visited the cathedral and the mosque. It's particularly interesting that often with American groups, we have Jewish students who are coming and who've never had the opportunity to visit a mosque back in their home country, but do get the chance when they come to Durban. Ongoing continuous professional development is something we offer to our own staff and also to our booksellers. Here's Cedric Sissing, the doyen of bookselling in Durban, leading a session with our booksellers reflecting on rare and antiquarian books. And our booksellers are people who are always keen to learn, but also keen to teach through the books that they sell and through promoting literacy across the city. One of the ways in which we encourage our staff to learn is through the annual Paddy Grant. Named after Paddy Carney, every staff member is entitled to request up to R1,000 for something which helps them with personal development. So here's Stuart Talbot, we used his grant to improve his artistic skills. Marie Garrett from the clinic used hers to buy a laptop to help her with her studies. And Malin, also from the clinic, used hers to pay for her gym membership, seen here with her husband, Hiron Andrew, one of the Sharks players, and their lovely son, Hendrix. Moving up the pyramid, we get to aesthetic needs. The benefit of the Denis Hurley Centre of having such close links with artists and performers in Durban, which enable us in turn to work with other artists and performers. So the UKZN's Centre for Jazz, whenever they have international visitors, encourage them to come down and play at the Denis Hurley Centre. Here, a big band from an American university who performed outside to the delight of our homeless guests and passing shopping. Or one of Okuza's own musical groups, a group of women who were learning instruments, brought their band along on Women's Day, and Akusa continue to offer guitar classes at the Dennis Hurley Centre every Saturday morning. Another collaboration with the UKZN is with their Centre for Creative Arts. For a number of years, we've been one of the community venues during the Durban International Film Festival. We also hosted part of their Poetry Africa Festival, and we have here 4 poets from different parts of Africa coming and sharing their words with our homeless visitors, and also encouraging homeless people to share their own poetry. A particularly exciting festival with UKZN this year was the Artfluence Festival, an opportunity to reflect on how art can promote human rights through great images that were projected onto the side of our building. Unfortunately, it was a hideously wet evening, so not many people came out in person to see this, but thanks to technology, we were still able to transmit the images around the world. This very powerful image of peace. 4 religions united in peace, shalom, shanti, salam, with the alphabets of each of those religions. A great performer who supported us over many years is Musa Hlachwayo, and his dancers produced a piece of work about gender-based violence, which they performed outside the Dennis Hurley Centre. Also brought to us Indodana, his award-winning piece created for the Grahamstown Arts Festival that has been touring the country, and that was performed inside our centre for staff members, for invited guests, also for homeless people. And the dancers themselves, having performed this many times around the country, commented afterwards on how moving it was for them to present a piece which is exploring masculine identities and the challenges to masculine identity with a group of homeless people, hearing their reactions and their comments on the work that they had seen. Almost at the top of the pyramid, we reach self-actualization, and we hope that we find different ways to enable our staff members, our volunteers, and most importantly, our beneficiaries to actualize themselves, to express themselves. One of the ways of doing that has been an opportunity throughout this year to encourage people to paint a block which expresses something about how they feel about the Dennis Hurley Centre. And those blocks, by the end of our anniversary year, will be brought together in a display in the prayer room at the Dennis Hurley Centre. We continue to find opportunities for our own staff and volunteers to grow and to learn. Here, a group of them are visiting the KwaMuhle Museum in the centre of town. And we work very closely with our sister organisation, the Napier Centre for Healing, an organisation very much committed to self-actualisation of people who've been living on the streets and have been highly addicted, often to wunga, a form of heroin, and the months they spend at the Napier Centre after preparation with the Dennis Hurley Centre enables them to become eventually the person who God actually created them to be. We always look for ways to stretch young people, and here a group of learners from Fatima Dominican Convent School, a school founded by Dennis Hurley 60 years ago, teenagers who spent a day with us reflecting on their lives and reflecting on the mission that God gives each one of us. We had an opportunity in 2023 not only to challenge young people, but also to challenge their teachers. Sister Kathy and I worked with the Catholic Schools Office to present a course for training and developing potential leaders in Catholic schools to think about and reflect on the particular skills required to lead a Catholic school and what personal development they needed to go through to achieve that. And we hope as an organisation we challenge ourselves and we challenge others in the NGO world. Here we are at CAST, the Westville Baptist Church's NGO, and they brought together a number of organisations that work with homeless people, and we were looking at the ways in which we as churches respond to the challenge of homelessness, and had homeless people themselves sharing how it felt for them to be on the receiving end of the generosity, but also sometimes the inappropriate attitudes of some church members. And finally, we reach the level of transcendence. Through religious means, we try to help the people who come to us to move beyond what's here in this world and to look to a world beyond. Religious symbols are a great way of doing that. And every year on Ash Wednesday, we offer ashes outside the Dennis Hurley Centre for homeless people who are waiting for lunch, but also for anyone who's passing by, perhaps people too busy to go into church, or perhaps too self-conscious to go into church, giving them an opportunity to receive ashes as a way of symbolizing their commitment to turn back to God. Every week on a Thursday, we have staff prayers at the Hurley Centre, and so on Maundy Thursday, we're able to use the religious symbol of the washing of the feet, as Jesus did to his disciples on the first Holy Thursday. And this is a ritual whereby not only does everyone get their feet washed, but everyone washes somebody else's feet. So we experience the feeling of both giving service and receiving service. We want to learn always from other religious traditions, and we continue the custom of hosting an interfaith iftar every year. So during Ramadan, encouraging non-Muslims to spend a day fasting alongside their Muslim neighbors and brothers and sisters, and then coming together at the end of the day to break the fast and to reflect on what Ramadan means and the tradition of fasting that's in Ramadan and in Lent and in other religious rituals. Bringing together people of different faiths in unity is an important part of our work at the Dennis Hurley Centre, and that's become even more necessary in the wake of what's been happening in Gaza and the way in which that conflict has been characterized by some as a religious conflict. We were delighted to support a group of women from across the city, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist and Baha'i, who wanted to show their joint commitment to praying together and speaking out united for peace. And a very Catholic response to transcendence is to recognize that just because people have died doesn't mean that we can't feel united with them by praying for them and asking them to pray for us. So every year in November, we observe the Catholic tradition of particularly praying for the dead, and we always remember not just supporters who've died, but also family of staff members and indeed service users themselves. Just a few of the members of our community who passed away in the last year. In the top left-hand corner, Reverend Sue Britton was one of the first Anglican women priests in South Africa and worked very closely with Paddy in Diaconia. And somebody else who worked closely with Paddy in the middle is Professor Hussein Kuvadia, a great figure in the liberation struggle, and seen here with Paddy in a photo that was used in the New York Times obituary for Hussein. Professor Kuvadia was a world-renowned pediatrician, and we were honoured that he was a patron of the Dennis Hurley Centre. In the bottom left-hand corner, Zuleika Mayat died just before our AGM this year, a world-famous author in Durban, author of the famous book Indian Delights, seen here attending our meal of reconciliation a few years ago. In the top right-hand corner, Bishop Morris Taylor died in his late 90s, probably the last remaining member of the group of bishops whom Hurley brought together in the 70s to help create the unified English language in the liturgy that was promoted around the Catholic world. And Bishop Morris Taylor had been a patron of our UK organisation. And we mentioned already David van der Westhuizen, and we remember him. We remember others of our community, particularly service users who passed away and who may have no one to remember them and no one to pray for them. Maslow presents the levels of his pyramid as if they were separate steps and that you have to progress from one to the other in a certain order. But the reality of our experience is that, of course, all of these needs are being met at the same time, and ideally we're able to respond to a number of needs at a number of levels. And there's probably no better event that symbolizes that than our annual mediation that we host on the 16th of December, the Day of Reconciliation. An opportunity for people from across Durban to come together and share a meal together. Homeless people, refugees, people who regularly come to the centre of the city, and people who never come to the centre of the city, sitting side by side, enjoying company, enjoying companionship, and enjoying food and drink. Huge amounts of wonderful food and drink get donated to make that event possible. Together, people of different faiths. Here, literally a Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian woman who are united on that day of reconciliation. The ways we do that is through the food that we serve. So we serve the traditional Durban dish for feeding a lot of people at an event, a biryani, And because of our commitment to interfaith collaboration, we every year serve a Christian biryani, a Muslim biryani, a Hindu biryani, and indeed a kosher biryani. But one of the things we discovered through the research about Paddy for the PhD is that the term the Day of Reconciliation, in fact, originated with Paddy. In 1985, he wrote an article where he asked us to imagine a day in which the day of the vow, which is what the 16th of December was, and a day fraught with historical baggage, imagine a time when the day of the vow could be a day of reconciliation for all South Africans. He spawned the idea, and by the time of liberation, it became an official public holiday for all South Africans. This is an opportunity for us to say thank you to so many people who make our work possible. This photo shows most of the members of our board of trustees who provide wonderful governance for the organization, and some of the managers of the organization united around Reverend Delicia Tim, an Anglican priest who is the chair of our trustees. And to name all of our staff and full-time volunteers during 2023 who in different ways have supported our work, sometimes paid, sometimes not paid, but always working together to help us serve those most in need in the centre of Durban. And we do that work with a whole range of partner organisations. And it's important to recognise that our partners come from a wide range: faith partners, NGO partners, corporate partners, government partners, people who contribute with money, with goods, with time, and with their expertise. Because this is an AGM, we need to recognize that the financial information which helps us to see how we're doing as an organization. Not surprisingly, because of inflation, our costs do go up every year, but we work really hard to try to keep them under control and make sure that they don't increase by more than inflation. That when we reviewed last year, we discovered that we actually ended up spending less than we had budgeted. We spent 5.78 million rand, but that was 7% below our budget. Most of it, of course, being spent on staffing, or not that we pay very large salaries to our staff, but obviously we have people who need to be paid. And then you see other important expenditure on supplies and medicines, on utilities, a tiny amount on professional fees, because we get so much donated to us by the different professional experts who work with us. And where does that money come from? Well, again, not only did we spend less than budget, but we actually raised more than budget, 7% above our budget, and money coming from a whole range of different sources. And we continue to benefit from the fact that as an organization, we're not dependent on any one source or any one type of source, but in fact have money coming from a wide range of different organizations and different types of organizations. But we have to work hard to manage our income over time and make sure that when we do have a surplus, we can carry it forward to the next year. And if we have a deficit, we have sufficient reserves from our sustainability fund to enable us to continue to cover our needs and continue to provide our services. So in closing, a few plans for 2024. Say an anniversary year, 20 years since Archbishop Hurley's death and 10 years since the completion of the Dennis Hurley Centre, and we've got a whole host of activities through the course of the year. We're beginning with our National Homeless Conversation, which this year is being held on the East Rand for the first time ever, looking in particular at different livelihoods projects. Here, a wonderful bakery set up by Manger Care, teaching homeless people to bake bread and to bake bread in their homes, which they can then sell in local. We're delighted that we are part of a group working with the Human Science Research Council to help develop finally a national policy on homelessness with the Department of Social Development. We're looking forward to an interfaith conference that's being hosted at Newman University in Birmingham in the UK, and myself and Dr. A.V. Muhammad from the Grey Street Mosque will be attending and speaking at that conference to share our personal experience of interfaith activity. A.V. here seen with the new US Consul General for Durban, Josie Ratcliffe. And as part of that UK visit, there's also going to be a lecture tour of the UK, visiting 4 different cities, reflecting on the parallels between the life of Archbishop Dennis Hurley and St. Oscar Romero, ending with a special service at St. Martin in the Fields on Trafalgar Square, right next door to South Africa House. The annual Diaconia Good Friday service this year will particularly reflect on the legacy of Archbishop Hurley, because the Good Friday service, of course, was created by him and Paddy Carney back in the 1980s. And with the prospect of elections, we will be mobilizing for those elections, encouraging people to vote, encouraging people to think carefully about who they vote for, and giving homeless people an opportunity to meet politicians and speak to them face to face, as happened here at the last elections back in 2021. We're hosting a conference with our partners at St. Joseph's Theological Institute in Sadara, reflecting on the church and ecology, something very about which Hurley was very passionate. There's a statue here of Hurley at the Denis Hurley Denis Hurley Library at Sadara, and just behind him, his great hero, the Jesuit ecologist, Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. We hope to offer a course in leadership in urban transformation with the University of Pretoria, bringing together practitioners from around the city to reflect on how faith can be used to transform our cities. And also pursue various ecumenical links. We were delighted that the Anglican Bishop of Natal was just recently in Rome, here with Pope Francis, and being presented by our own Archbishop Mandla Jwara, and deepening those ecumenical links is really. And one of the ways in which we'll be doing that is to do an ecumenical organ promenade, where Melvin Peters, one of our great supporters, and various other organists will be playing organs around the city and encouraging people to move between different churches and hear some of the wonderful music that's produced by the Durban churches. A few insights into what we're looking forward to for 2024 for our anniversary year. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your ongoing prayers for our work. God bless.